following is a presentation of WGN News.
This week on Backstory, spiritual but not religious.
I don't have to wear skirts and read the Bible every day to believe in God.
A new way of looking at life's big questions. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
I mean, this is stuff you don't read about. It's a movie.
This backstory features unbelievable tales of heroism and a difficult decision for a hero from Chicago. Newly discovered telegrams reveal secret codes from Lincoln and his generals. How you can help crack the code.
This is Backstory with Larry Potash.
I'm Larry Potash. This is Backstory. I love history, and when it comes to the history of religion, changes come very slowly. Consistent rituals and belief help propel a religious movement forward through generations. But lately, we're seeing a change that's moving quickly. Polls show the fastest growing demographic is the spiritual but not religious or non-affiliated. Spiritual can mean different things to different people. We explored how a few people are doing it and talked to one pastor who says, don't give up on organized religion just yet.
I can't believe you're giving up church, Homer.
Hey, what's the big deal about going to some building every Sunday? I mean, isn't God everywhere?
Amen, brother.
There are many excuses not to go to worship services, but these days people don't feel the need to make excuses. They're just not going.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, like the sun from out the way.
For years, some saw religion as an obligation. Now more people are seeing spirituality beyond the walls of worship.
Of the grave.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
The Pew Research poll on religion shows 1 in 4 Americans describe themselves as spiritual but not religious. The number is at 27%, up 8 percentage points from 5 years ago. This is about equal in every race, gender, religion, and political party. So what does spiritual mean? It means different things to different people. For some, it may mean alternative, like New Age. For others, it may mean no community or no ritual. And still others may say spiritual because they fear there's a stigma associated with being a non-believer.
I think God is not petty. Okay, we're petty.
Metta Smith connects with Christianity as her parents do. But her spiritual journey has been a path with twists and turns through spiritual beliefs from the Far East to Africa.
My necklace, my beads were my father's beads. We got them on a trip to the Bahamas, and he called them his juju beads or his hexen beads.
She just returned from a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. She explores various beliefs and incorporates what she finds enlightening.
I don't feel like I'm trying to hedge my bets with my soul or anything. Like, well, let me just put a few cards on each religion and a few chips here and there and let the cards fall where they may. It really isn't that. But I think that certain messages were spread to certain people for their benefit and for where they are and where they were physically and spiritually at the time, and that it all comes from one source.
Pradhan Balter of Roscoe Village grew up being called Sandy. He had his bar mitzvah, but the family wasn't very religious. The late 60s was a turning point.
When I was a young man, I was part of the hippie movement. I was smack in the middle of it, and I went through some experiences there where I almost died. At the time, it was an extremely harrowing experience.
Because of drugs?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I would not, I want to qualify that I do not encourage anyone into that world. Drugs are consciousness altering, but they're not consciousness elevating.
In 1976, he met a spiritual guru in New York, Sri Chinmoy. Meditation became a part of life.
I find that most people are trying to reconcile themselves with their aloneness. And secondly, they also try to avoid the pain of aloneness, which means filling their time with things that they find entertaining and or pleasurable. And that doesn't really resolve the problem of your aloneness. It preoccupies you so that you don't have to confront it. I find it sad. You can put someone in a room with nothing to do in it and they struggle with that. They're not comfortable enough in their own skin that they can't be happy simply sitting in a room with nothing to do. That's a little bit sad for me.
He's been the director of the Sri Chinmoy Center in Chicago for 45 years and says several thousand people around the world follow the Guru's teachings. He says some come to get in touch with the cosmos, others to simply lower their blood pressure.
To me, religion happens here. Yes, it can be facilitated by attending church, by attending a mosque, by attending a temple. But ultimately, it has to happen here, 24/7, every moment.
Kol Hadash is a Jewish congregation in the northern suburbs. It looks similar to any traditional Jewish service, but there's one difference. For the most part, they don't believe in the traditional personal God. Rabbi Adam Shalom says they find purpose without supernatural guidance.
For some people, spirituality is supernatural. It's focused on the spirit world, or talking to the spirits. But we find that many people get inspired, find inspiration in nature, through beautiful music, through doing good deeds in the world. If it's part of the human experience, we should care, because that tells us not only what it means to be human, but how to become a better human.
The denomination is called Jewish Humanism. It's a place where spiritual but not religious might fit in an organized movement.
Maybe you need to look in a different box. Instead of looking in the religion box all the time, look into philosophy, look into ethics, look into history, look into aesthetics, beauty, music, art. You may find things that move you, that inspire you, that motivate you to be a better person in other places than simply in religion. And ideally, this is what we try to do in humanistic Judaism, we should be bringing in the best of those fields into what we do as a community.
In those environments, the churches that...
Pastor Lillian Daniel is a senior pastor at First Congregational Church in Dubuque, Iowa. She met us at Church of the Three Crosses in Old Town. She's the author of the book, When Spiritual But Not Religious Is Not Enough. She says people are giving up on organized religion too quickly.
When we sort of make up our own religious life, right? If we make up our own spirituality, piece it together the way we want, we will tend to, it's just human nature, create God in our own image. So we're going to create a spirituality or an ethical system in which generally everything we're doing is fantastic. What irritates me is the person who says to you, oh, I'm spiritual but not religious. I don't need any religion to get between me and God because I see God in the sunset. And it's like they're implying that I don't see God in the sunset. And of course I see God in the sunset. But they'll say, all I need is nature. You know, I find God in nature. Well, where does that break down? A natural disaster, a tsunami, that's nature.
Cancer.
Cancer is nature. Do you find God in that? It's more complicated. And that's where you have these religious traditions that have been wrestling for thousands of years with, why does somebody good end up with some terrible form of cancer? It's not as simple as everything in nature is beautiful and that's where God is.
She received criticism from many readers who were spiritual but not religious, and that motivated her to write her new book, Tired of Apologizing for a Church I Don't Belong to.
I understand that people have been hurt by the church and other religions. I don't dismiss that. But what I do think happens is right now there's an acceptance of talking about religious people and religion in these really stereotypical ways.
Religion is as diverse and complex as anything. She says it's not fair to simply blame religion for society's sins. So how can religion reconnect? Daniel says too many people leave worship services feeling lost or stupid.
Most of how pastors are taught to preach presumes that the people in the pew know something about this bizarre book, right? And that's not true.
Amen.
These days, whatever religion you're a leader in, you have to be a teacher first.
The Pew poll shows 1 in 5 Americans choose none as their religion, and at age 30, that number climbs to 1 in 3. Ben Zalisko is an atheist, but he was still part of a congregation. The Sunday assemblies started in the UK in 2013, and the atheist congregation started in Chicago later that year. It's based on, well, church.
So many of our interactions right now are digital,
And when you join a Facebook group, that's not nearly as fulfilling as showing up and meeting people in person.
A recent study found they were motivated not by the sermon or singing, but by the socialization.
One thing we're going to start doing is organizing small...
A common theme among these people is feeling persecuted as atheists.
Usually half the congregation has got a tear rolling down their cheek by the end of this, where they tell some story about how losing their religious community was such a hole in their heart.
Zalisko says atheist church sounds weird, and it's one reason it failed to thrive in Chicago. It recently disbanded and is looking for new leaders.
Try to cleanse myself spiritually.
For Maida Smith, the journey is ongoing.
But yeah, it is about me, and I believe in spirituality as a journey of the self. It is one's individual union with a higher power. So I don't think that that has to be negative or selfish. It's just a fact. It is.
The institution versus the individual. The church viewed the spiritual as self-centered. The spiritual may view the institution as out of touch. At times, they may both be right. A common spiritual theme seems to be inspiration from nature, but the clergy suggests reflecting on sunsets may get a little selfish if it disconnects you from the world around you. Coming up, it was the First World War, but most know little about it. The backstory features incredible tales of heroism that are like scenes from a movie.